Girls, in today's video, I'm going to tell you a story that shocked me. My retired neighbor separated just a month ago and is already receiving visits from a woman at least 20 years younger than him. Guys, I couldn't believe my eyes. Don't look away because what I discovered about this situation will leave you speechless. Hey everyone, it's Ruth, and every day on this channel, I bring you a new story or gossip I see through my curtains here in the neighborhood. And believe me, there's always something happening around here worth sharing. First of all, if you enjoy these neighborhood stories, leave a like below, subscribe to the channel to be notified every time I post a new piece of gossip, and leave a comment letting me know if you've ever experienced something similar. And please, stay tuned, because the ending to this story is truly surprising. But before I begin today's story, I always like to give a special tip to those of you who follow me. I pinned some natural products in the first comment that can greatly benefit your health. These are products I use and wholeheartedly recommend, with options for a variety of problems like insomnia, joint pain, diabetes, diet aids, and much more. Just click the link pinned in the comments. You'll love learning about these natural options. Now, let's get to the story. You guys have no idea how intrigued I was by this situation. It all started about 3 weeks ago, on a Tuesday morning. I was in my kitchen making coffee when I heard a car pulling up in front of my neighbor Michael's house. You know how it is, right? We always get curious when there's unusual activity on the street. Michael lives in the blue house, right across from my kitchen window. He's in his early 60s, always a very private man, and worked at an accounting firm until he retired last year. His wife Sandra left home last month after 30 years of marriage. I've always noticed they weren't very close. I rarely saw them chatting in the garden or going out together on weekends. So, going back to that Tuesday, when I peeked through the crack in the curtain, and you know I always keep a small opening to watch the street, I saw a woman getting out of a silver compact car. Guys, the first thing that caught my attention was her outfit. A tight pink blouse, jeans, and white sneakers. But what struck me most was her age. She looked to be in her 40s, maybe even younger. Her light brown hair was shoulder length, neatly styled, her makeup done. A truly attractive woman. And there she was, walking purposefully up to Michael's front door, carrying a large purse and what looked like a grocery bag. I stood there, glued to the curtain, watching every movement. Michael opened the door before she even knocked, as if he'd been waiting for her. They greeted each other with a kiss on the cheek, nothing major there, and walked into the house together. Ladies, I confess I was a bit skeptical. I mean, a man has been separated for a month and already has a much younger woman visiting him. And judging by the naturalness of the encounter, it didn't seem like it was her first time there. I decided to keep an eye on the situation. You know how it is, right? Sometimes you need to understand what's going on in the neighborhood to make sure everything is okay. Especially when it involves such sudden changes in the life of someone you've known for years. All morning, her car was parked in front of the house. I took the opportunity to slowly clean the kitchen, always peeking out the window. Around 11:30, I saw her coming out the back door to hang clothes on the line. Wow, she was hanging men's clothes, shirts, underwear, socks, as if she were the lady of the house. This made me even more curious. It's one thing to visit someone, but it's another to already be taking care of their clothes, as if they'd been a long-time family member. And let's face it, girls, a month apart, and she's already doing housework for him. It seemed so strange. At lunchtime, she was still there. I saw smoke coming from the chimney, a sign she was probably cooking. Michael appeared in the garden for a few minutes, watering the plants with that smile I hadn't seen on his face in a long time. He looked like a completely renewed man. She didn't leave until around 3 in the afternoon. As she was packing her things in the car, Michael came over to her, and they talked for a few minutes on the sidewalk. I couldn't hear anything, but their body language was very familiar, very comfortable with each other. After she left, I kept thinking about the whole situation. Was Michael already involved with her before the breakup? Was that why Sandra left home? Or did he find this company too quickly after being alone? The next day, Wednesday, I was prepared. I positioned my favorite chair near the living room window, where I had a perfect view of the entire street. I brought my knitting magazine to disguise it, but my attention was entirely focused on Michael's house. Around 9 in the morning, there she was again. This time she arrived on foot, walking down the street carrying 2 paper bags, probably from the grocery store 3 blocks away. She had a key. Girls! She opened the front door with her own key. This completely changed my perspective on the situation. She wasn't just a visitor. She had free access to the house. Did they already live together? But how could they, if he'd only been separated for a month? During the morning, I noticed her coming and going through the back of the house a few times. She seemed to be organizing things, perhaps tidying up the house in a different way. I also saw her talking on the phone in the garden, gesturing a lot, seeming excited by the conversation. The most interesting thing happened at lunchtime. Michael left the house, went to the grocery store, and came back with flowers. A beautiful bouquet of white daisies. When he got home, she received the flowers with a warm hug. Wow, they looked like a couple in love. But that's where the question arises, right? In his early 60s, recently separated, was he having a teenage romance? And she, a young, beautiful woman, why would she be interested in a much older man who had just gotten out of a marriage? That afternoon, they left together in his car. She was well-dressed, wearing a navy blue dress and high-heeled sandals. They seemed to be heading somewhere special. They didn't return until late in the afternoon, carrying several shopping bags. On Thursday, I decided to pay attention to the details. When she arrived in the morning, again on foot, with her own key, I noticed she wasn't wearing a wedding ring. This caught my attention because many women continue to wear it even after separation or divorce. But she had no mark on her finger, as if she'd never worn one. That morning, I saw her cleaning the front windows of the house. She worked very efficiently, like someone accustomed to housekeeping, and Michael helped her, holding the ladder and bringing clean cloths. They worked in sync, as if they'd been partners for a long time. Around 10 o'clock, a delivery truck arrived. It was a furniture store. They delivered a new armchair and what appeared to be a sideboard for the living room. She oversaw the entire delivery, telling them where she wanted each piece placed. She was definitely not just a visitor. What intrigued me most was seeing her greet the delivery man at the door, as if she were the owner of the house, signing the delivery papers and giving instructions on where to position the furniture. Michael was nearby, but he let her handle everything. It seemed like she had complete autonomy over the household's decisions. That afternoon, they went out together again, but this time they returned with a companion. It was an older woman, around 50, with gray hair, who seemed to know them both well. They sat in the garden talking for over an hour, laughing a lot and looking very comfortable. When the visitor left, I saw Michael and the young woman saying goodbye to her, with great affection, as if she were family. This made me wonder, had she already been introduced to his friends and family? Could this relationship be more serious than I imagined? By Friday, I was already fully engaged in this observation. I confess I woke up early, just to make sure I didn't miss any action. And it was a day full of surprises. First, she arrived earlier than usual, around 8 in the morning. She was carrying a small suitcase. Girls, a suitcase. This meant she'd be spending more time at the house, maybe the entire weekend. Shortly after she got in, another car arrived. It was a woman about Michael's age, very elegant, who rang the doorbell. When the young woman opened the door, the two greeted each other with kisses. like old acquaintances. They were chatting in the living room, and through the window I could see it was a lively conversation, with lots of gestures and laughter. The older woman had brought a folder of papers, and they spent a long time examining documents together. When Michael arrived in the room, he'd gone out to buy bread. He greeted the visitor very familiarly. The three of them sat chatting, and judging by the body language, it seemed like an important but relaxed meeting. The visitor left around 10:30, taking some papers with her. Afterward, Michael and the young woman sat in the kitchen talking seriously. I couldn't hear anything, but I noticed he was holding her hand as they spoke, a very affectionate and protective gesture. Late in the afternoon, they received another visitor. This time it was a young man, perhaps the same age as the girl. He arrived on a bicycle and was greeted enthusiastically by her. They hugged at the front door, and she introduced him to Michael, who extended his hand in a warm greeting. The three of them stayed in the garden talking until it got dark. The boy seemed to be telling something very funny, because everyone was laughing a lot. When he left, Michael gave him a hug too, as if he were someone special to them. Guys, I was increasingly confused by this whole situation. At first, I thought it was a hasty relationship, perhaps even self-serving. But observing all these details, the visits, the naturalness of everyone involved, I began to wonder if there wasn't something deeper going on. What do you guys think? Was I being too hasty in my judgment? Don't leave because there's still a lot more to tell. And what I discovered over the weekend has completely changed my mind about everything. On Saturday morning, I woke up with a renewed determination to find out what was really going on at Michael's house. I confess that my curiosity had reached a level I hadn't expected. I made my coffee early and strategically positioned myself at the kitchen window, where I have the best view of his front yard. Around 7:30, I saw a strange movement. The young woman, whose name I didn't yet know, came out the back door wearing a terry cloth robe and slippers, carrying what appeared to be bed linens. She hung sheets, pillowcases, and a quilt on the clothesline, all very casually, as if she did this routinely. Ladies, this got me thinking. If she was washing bed linens, it meant she'd actually slept there. And the way she handled everything, it didn't seem like it was her first time. She knew perfectly where the clothespins were, how to stretch the sheets to dry better. All those household details that only someone familiar with the house would know. While she was in the backyard, Michael appeared at the kitchen window with 2 steaming cups of coffee. He waved at her, and she smiled and gestured that she would be finished in a few minutes. The intimacy between them was evident, the harmony of a couple who have lived together for a long time. What happened next intrigued me even more. Around 9 o'clock, a car arrived that I immediately recognized. It was Sandra, Michael's ex-wife. My heart actually raced when I saw her getting out of the car. I thought, now there's going to be trouble. But to my complete surprise, there was no drama. Sandra rang the doorbell as usual, and the young woman herself answered the door. They greeted each other cordially, as if they'd already met. Sandra entered the house carrying some boxes, and they chatted in the living room like 2 civilized people. Michael appeared soon after, and the 3 of them chatted for a few minutes. Judging by their body language, there was no tension in the air. In fact, it seemed like a friendly conversation, perhaps about the practicalities of the separation. After about half an hour, Sandra came out carrying more boxes, probably her personal belongings that were still in the house. Before leaving, she and the young woman hugged goodbye. Girls' hugs, as if they were friends. This left me completely confused. What ex-wife hugs her ex-husband's new girlfriend, especially when the separation had only been a month ago? There was something about this story I didn't understand. I decided I needed to find out more about this situation. During the afternoon, I observed the normal activity around the house. They barbecued in the backyard, laughed a lot, and seemed like a completely comfortable couple. She prepared the salad while he prepared the meat, that natural division of tasks that couples develop over time. On Sunday, something happened that changed my perception of everything. It was around 10 in the morning when a car full of people arrived. 2 children got out, a boy of about 10 and a younger girl, along with a woman who appeared to be their mother. The children ran straight to Michael, shouting, "Grandpa! Girls!" They were his grandchildren. The woman accompanying them must have been Michael's daughter. And you know what surprised me most? The children greeted the young woman as naturally as they greeted their grandfather. The younger girl even asked to be held, and I saw the young woman playing with the 2 children in the garden, as if they were old friends. They ran, laughed, and played tag, a completely normal family scene. Michael's daughter also treated the young woman very cordially. They talked at length on the porch while the children played and Michael prepared lunch. Judging by her body language, it seemed her daughter fully approved of this woman's presence in her father's life. During lunch, the whole family was gathered in the backyard. I could hear laughter and lively conversation. The children shared stories from school. The young woman actively participated in the conversations, and Michael seemed happier than I'd seen him in years. One thing that really caught my attention was how the young woman interacted with the children. She didn't try to assert authority or act like a new grandmother. She was more like a special friend, someone the children genuinely enjoyed being around. When the family left late that afternoon, the children kissed and hugged her goodbye, promising to return the following weekend. Michael's daughter also gave her a fond farewell, and I heard her say something like, "Thank you for taking such good care of him." Guys, those words echoed in my head all night. Thank you for taking such good care of him. It didn't sound like approval of a new, hasty relationship. It sounded like gratitude for something that had been going on for a long time. On Monday, I decided to do something I'd never done before. Go for a walk just as she usually arrived. I needed to try to find out more information. Maybe even strike up a casual conversation. Around 8:30, there she was walking toward Michael's house. I was pretending to tidy my mailbox when she passed. I said a polite, "Good morning," and she responded with a warm smile. "You're the neighbor across the street, aren't you?" she asked, stopping to chat. "Michael always speaks fondly of you. He says you've been neighbors for years." I took advantage of the opening to introduce myself. "I'm Ruth. I've lived here for almost 15 years. And you are?" "Emma," she replied. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Ruth." Michael always comments on how beautiful and peaceful you keep the neighborhood. Talking to her in person completely changed my impression. Emma was polite, friendly, and had a warm way of talking about Michael. There was nothing artificial or self-serving about her behavior. During our brief conversation, she mentioned that she was helping Michael organize some things around the house after the separation. "He's going through a lot of changes," she said, "and I just want him to feel good and comfortable at home." When I asked how long they had known each other, she smiled. "It's been a while. We met through mutual friends." This made me realize that maybe I'd read things wrong from the start. Maybe they'd known each other longer than I'd realized, and the relationship wasn't as sudden as it seemed. During that week, I continued observing, but now with a different perspective. I began to notice details I hadn't noticed before. The way she cared for the plants in the garden, for example. She didn't just water them, but pruned, replanted, and cared for them with the care of someone who truly knows each species. On Tuesday, I saw her receiving a pharmacy delivery man. She checked the medications carefully before signing the receipt. Did she know Michael's medication? This would indicate a level of intimacy and care that goes beyond a casual relationship. On Wednesday, I witnessed a scene that deeply touched me. Michael tripped in the garden and sprained his ankle. Emma immediately rushed to help him, with genuine concern on her face. She helped him into the house, brought him ice, and cared for him attentively. Later, I saw her leaving for the pharmacy and returning with anti-inflammatories. Throughout the day, she was attentive to his needs, preparing food, helping him get around, demonstrating a care that only someone who truly loves him could show. On Thursday, they received a very interesting visitor. It was an elderly couple, apparently old friends of Michael's. What struck me was how they treated Emma. with complete familiarity, as if she had been part of their circle of friends for a long time. During afternoon coffee in the garden, I observed that the conversation was lively and natural. The visitors showed no signs of awkwardness or discomfort with Emma's presence. In fact, the elderly woman seemed quite close to her, holding her hand as they chatted. As the friends left, I heard them saying goodbye. The man said something like, "It's so good to see you two so happy." And the woman added, "After so long, you deserve this peace." Girls, those words made me stop and think seriously. After all this time, you deserve this peace. That didn't sound like approval of a new relationship. It sounded like joy that something had finally worked out. On Friday, something happened that began to clarify everything. Emma was in the garden when a young woman arrived on a bike, apparently her daughter. They looked very much alike. Same brown hair, same light eyes, same delicate way of moving. The daughter chatted with Emma for a long time, then came in to greet Michael. I saw the three of them talking in the kitchen, and through the window, I could see that it was a serious but relaxed conversation. The daughter seemed to be delivering some kind of important news, because both Emma and Michael were very emotional. After their daughter left, Emma and Michael embraced in the garden. It wasn't a romantic embrace, but rather a hug between two people who shared something profound, a connection that went beyond physical appearance or age. On Saturday, I decided to do something risky. I made a cornmeal cake, the kind that's always a hit with the neighborhood, and took it to them as an excuse to learn more about the situation. When I rang the doorbell, it was Emma who answered. She was genuinely happy to have me here. "How kind of you, Ruth. Please come in." The house was completely different from when Sandra lived there. Cozier, more colorful, with fresh flowers in various corners. Emma offered me coffee and insisted I stay to chat. Michael joined us in the living room, and for the first time in years, I saw him truly relaxed and happy. They talked to me like a well-established couple, without any awkwardness or artificiality. During our conversation, some important information began to emerge naturally. Emma mentioned that she worked as a nurse in a private hospital. Michael mentioned that they met when he had to accompany Sandra to some medical treatments last year. "Emma took great care of Sandra during a difficult time," Michael explained. "And since then she has become a very special friend to our family." Emma added, "When I learned that Michael was going through this transition, I couldn't help but help. He's a wonderful person and deserves all the care in the world." Guys, it started to become clear that the story was quite different from what I had imagined. Emma had known the family for a long time, had taken care of Sandra, and there seemed to be a genuine friendship between them all. Let me know in the comments what you think is really happening here. Was I completely wrong about this situation? And don't forget to click the link pinned in the first comment to learn about those natural products I mentioned at the beginning of the video. They're wonderful options for taking care of your health. As I was leaving their house, Emma walked me to the gate. "Ruth," she said, "I hope we can be good neighbors. Michael always speaks so fondly of all of you on the street." I returned home with my head racing with thoughts. All my initial theories were being questioned. What had seemed like a hasty and questionable relationship was revealing itself to be something much more complex and beautiful. On Sunday, I watched them welcome family back. This time, in addition to Michael's grandchildren and daughter, his son-in-law also came. The family dynamic was perfect. Emma naturally participated in everything, but without trying to occupy a role that wasn't hers. During lunch in the garden, I observed how the children turned to both their grandfather and Emma to resolve small conflicts or ask for help. She mediated situations with wisdom and care, demonstrating real experience with children. Michael's daughter spoke at length with Emma on the porch, and from her body posture, it seemed she was asking for advice or sharing concerns. Emma listened attentively and responded with loving gestures, as a dear friend would. When the family left later that afternoon, Michael's daughter gave Emma a particularly tight hug. Goodbye. "Thank you for everything," I heard her say. Dad is doing much better since you've been taking care of him." These words made me understand that Emma wasn't just a new girlfriend. She was someone who genuinely cared about Michael's well-being, who had become an important part of his life and his family's in a very natural and organic way. All week, I've been putting the pieces of the puzzle together. How Emma knew every detail of the house. How she knew exactly what medications Michael was taking. How the children treated her so naturally. How her ex-wife greeted her warmly. All of this made me realize that I had completely misread the situation from the start. What seemed like a rushed relationship between a recently separated man and a much younger woman was actually something much deeper and more meaningful. But the most surprising discovery was yet to come, and it would completely change my understanding of this whole story. By the following Monday, I was determined to uncover the full truth about this situation. All the clues I'd gathered during these weeks of observation didn't fit my initial theory of a hasty relationship. There was something much deeper going on, and I needed to understand what it was. That's when something happened that changed everything. Around 10 in the morning, a car I'd never seen before arrived at Michael's house. It was a well-maintained black sedan, driven by an elegant woman in her 50s. She got out of the car carrying a leather briefcase and a small suitcase. Emma came out to greet her, and the two embraced for a long time, like people who hadn't seen each other in a long time. They chatted animatedly on the sidewalk for a few minutes before entering the house together. About an hour later, Michael left the house and returned accompanied by two other people, a man in a suit who appeared to be a lawyer, and a younger woman carrying a professional camera. Ladies, a camera. What could be going on in there? My curiosity was piqued. I decided to do something I wouldn't normally do. Go outside and water my front yard, very slowly, to try to gather some information about what was happening. While watering my plants, I overheard fragments of conversation coming from their living room. I heard words like documentary, inspiring story, and example for other families. This intrigued me even more. What kind of inspiring story were they documenting? Around noon, everyone left the house and took up positions in the garden. The woman with the camera began filming Emma and Michael, talking on the bench under the tree. They appeared to be giving an interview, gesturing naturally as they spoke. At one point, I saw Emma show some photos to the camera. I couldn't see the details, but judging by the emotional expression on her face, they were very meaningful images. Michael held her hand throughout the shoot, a gesture of genuine support and affection. After the exterior shoot, everyone went back inside the house. The shoot lasted until mid-afternoon, and when they finished, I saw everyone saying goodbye with warm hugs. The woman who had arrived that morning handed Emma some paperwork before leaving. All this activity left me completely intrigued. What was so special about Emma and Michael's story that it deserved to be documented? And why did everyone involved seem so excited about the project? On Tuesday, I decided to take a more direct approach. I made an apple pie, the kind no one can resist, and went to their house with the excuse of reciprocating the hospitality of the previous visit. When Emma opened the door, she was visibly happy to see me. "Ruth, what a wonderful surprise. Please come in." This time, I was able to observe the house more closely. On the living room table, there were a few photos scattered about, apparently the same ones Emma had shown to the camera the day before. When I approached, she didn't try to hide them. On the contrary, she seemed proud to show them. "These are photos of my family," Emma explained, picking up one of the images. "This one is of my daughter when she was little, and this one is of my late husband." Girls, that's when everything started to become clear. Emma was a widow. She told me she had lost her husband in a car accident 3 years ago, leaving her alone to raise her daughter, who was only 16 at the time. "These were very difficult years," she continued. "I dedicated myself completely to work and my daughter, with no time to think about relationships or my own happiness." Michael joined the conversation and added, "Emma met us when Sandra needed special care at the hospital. She was the nurse assigned to her treatment, and from day one, she demonstrated extraordinary care and dedication. Emma smiled shyly. Sandra was going through a very delicate health situation, and I ended up getting emotionally involved in the case. She became more than a patient, she became a dear friend. And through Sandra, I met Michael, Emma continued. He spent hours at the hospital, always there, always caring for her with such love, even when their relationship had been on the rocks for years. Michael explained, Sandra and I had been having problems in our marriage for a long time. We were more like life partners than a couple in love. But when she got sick, I wanted to be there, to give her all the support she needed. It was during this time that Michael and I started talking, Emma said. Initially about Sandra's treatment, but then about life, about loss, about new beginnings. We discovered we had a lot in common. Guys, you have no idea how these revelations completely changed my perspective on the whole situation. Emma wasn't a gold digger who took advantage of a recently separated man. She was a hard-working widow who met Michael under very special circumstances. We approached each other as friends first, Michael continued. Emma was dealing with widowhood, and I was realizing that my marriage had emotionally ended a long time ago. We talked about our experiences, our fears, our dreams. Emma added, what started as a friendship has blossomed into something deeper, but always with great respect for Michael and Sandra's situation. There was never anything inappropriate while they were still married. Sandra knew how we felt, Michael revealed. In fact, she was the one who encouraged us to get together. She said she saw how happy I was when I talked to Emma, and that after so many years of a passionless marriage, I deserved to find someone who could make me smile again. Girls, imagine my surprise. Her own ex-wife had encouraged the relationship. This explained why Sandra greeted Emma so warmly when she came to pick up her things. The divorce had been in the works for over a year, Michael explained. Sandra and I had talked about it several times. We were friends, partners, but we weren't a couple anymore. We'd lived like siblings for years, Emma added. When Sandra finally moved out of the house, Michael and I were able to come out publicly about our relationship, but privately, our feelings had been there for over a year, and the age difference was never an issue, Michael said, looking fondly at Emma. When you find someone who completes you, who cares for you, who shares your values and dreams, age becomes just a number. Emma smiled. I've always related well to older people. My late husband was 8 years older than me, and Michael has an energy, a vitality that belies his age. He makes me feel young and happy again. Girls, it was becoming clear that I'd read everything wrong from the start. What seemed like a hasty relationship was actually a love story that had grown slowly, with respect, understanding, and approval from everyone involved. Yesterday's shoot, Emma explained, was for a documentary about starting over in later life. A production company is making a series about people who have found happiness in their 50s, overcoming loss and hardship, Michael added. They were interested in our story because it's rare to see an amicable, win-win divorce where the ex-wife supports her ex-husband's new relationship. And also because of the age difference, Emma said. A lot of people judge relationships like ours, thinking there's something wrong or self-serving. We want to show that true love has no age. As they shared more details, I began to understand all the situations I had observed during those weeks. Emma's natural approach to children stemmed from her having lived with the family for over a year as a friend. Her familiarity with the home stemmed from her having helped care for Sandra during her medical treatment. The kids have known me since Grandma was sick, Emma explained. I've always been there for the family during difficult times, so for them, I've been part of the family circle for a long time. My daughter adores Emma, Michael said. She saw how much good my friendship with Emma did me, even when I was still married. When I announced my divorce, she was the first to ask if Emma and I would stay together. Emma laughed. His daughter gave me such a hard time for taking so long to own up to my feelings. She said I was silly to worry about what other people would think. And my daughter totally approves too, Emma added. She met Michael at the hospital and always said he was a special man. When I told her we were dating, she was so happy I'd found someone so caring. Guys, do you realize how completely different the real story was from my initial suspicions? Instead of a questionable relationship, it was a beautiful story of two mature people who found each other at the right time in their lives. The furniture change you may have seen, Michael explained, was to adapt the house to our new lifestyle. Emma has a more youthful, colorful taste and is transforming this house into a more welcoming home. We're planning to get married next year, Emma revealed shyly. We want to have a small ceremony, just with family and close friends. Sandra has already said she'll come to the reception. Ladies, just imagine. The ex-wife attends her ex-husband's wedding. This shows the level of maturity and civility of everyone involved in this story. My longtime friends have loved Emma from the first time we met, Michael said. They see how she made me smile again, how she brought color and joy into my life after years of a passionless marriage, Emma added. And the hospital colleagues were so happy when I told them about Michael. They knew how lonely I'd been since I was widowed, and they saw how this relationship had brought me peace and happiness again. The most beautiful thing of all, Michael reflected, is that our relationship didn't hurt anyone. Sandra is happy and free to start her life over again, too. The children have gained another person who loves them. The families have come together in harmony. When I left their house that afternoon, I was completely overcome with emotion and ashamed of my initial suspicions. What I had interpreted as a hasty and questionable relationship was actually one of the most beautiful and mature love stories I had ever witnessed. Emma wasn't a gold digger taking advantage of a vulnerable man. She was a dedicated professional, a loving mother, and a widow who had overcome a great loss and found a second chance at happiness. Michael wasn't a man who abandoned his sick wife for a younger woman. He was a devoted husband who cared for his wife during her illness, acknowledged that their marriage had ended years ago, and found the courage to start over with dignity and transparency. The following Wednesday, I ran into Sandra at the supermarket. For the first time in years, I was able to talk to her naturally. She was radiant, happier than I'd ever remembered seeing her. Ruth, she said, I hope you didn't think badly of the situation back home. I know it may seem strange to those who don't know the whole story. I explained that I had been confused at first, but that I now understood perfectly. Sandra smiled. Emma is a wonderful person. She took care of me when I needed it most, and now she's taking care of Michael. I couldn't have chosen a better person for him. Michael and I were happy for many years, Sandra continued. But there came a time when we were more like brothers than spouses. Divorce was the best decision for both of us. Now he is truly happy, and I am also free to find my own happiness. On Thursday, I witnessed a scene that perfectly summed up this entire story. Emma was in the garden playing with Michael's grandchildren when his daughter arrived on her bike. The three generations chatted animatedly. Emma's daughter, Emma, and Michael's children. It was a blended family, formed not by blood but by love, respect, and genuine affection. Each person had found their place in this new family structure naturally and harmoniously. Over the weekend, they threw a backyard party to celebrate Emma's daughter's birthday. People of all ages came. Emma's friends from the hospital, Michael's old friends, his daughter with her grandchildren, Sandra with her new boyfriend, and neighbors from down the street. It was a celebration of life, love, and new beginnings. Everyone mingled, talking, laughing, and sharing stories. There was no awkwardness, tension, or judgment. Just happy people celebrating each other's happiness. During the party, I had the opportunity to talk to several people and gain an even better understanding of the situation. Friends from the hospital shared how Emma had dedicated herself to her work, after becoming a widow, how she deserved to find someone special. Michael's old friends talked about how his marriage to Sandra had cooled years ago, and how Emma had brought new life to him. Emma's daughter told me, "My mom suffered a lot when Dad died. She closed herself off from relationships, focused only on work and raising me. Seeing her happy again, smiling like she used to, is the greatest joy of my life." Michael's daughter added, "Mom and Dad were happy in the past, but for years they lived as roommates." Emma brought back that sparkle in his eyes that I haven't seen since I was a child. Even Sandra, who was at the party accompanied by her new partner, spoke about the situation. "Emma taught me that caring with love goes beyond professional obligations. She became my friend, and when I saw how happy Michael was talking to her, I knew they were made for each other." Ladies, this story taught me a valuable lesson about not judging situations by their outward appearance. What seemed like a questionable relationship was actually an example of how mature love, based on respect, understanding, and shared values, can flourish even in the most complex circumstances. Emma and Michael showed me that age is just a number when two people truly connect, that it's possible to end a marriage civilly, maintaining respect and friendship, that families can rebuild harmoniously when love and maturity are involved. Their story also made me reflect on my own prejudices and judgments. How often do we judge situations without knowing all the facts? How often are our first impressions completely wrong? Today, when I see Emma and Michael together in the garden, watering the plants, chatting calmly, welcoming the children on weekends, organizing barbecues with friends, I see a couple who have found happiness in a mature and responsible way. They're not a neighborhood scandal. They're an example that it's never too late to start over, that true love doesn't follow rigid age rules or social conventions, and that it's possible to build happiness without destroying the happiness of others. The age difference between them became irrelevant compared to the emotional compatibility, shared values, mutual care, and the shared life project they built together. Emma brought youth and energy to Michael's life, while he offered her stability, maturity, and a calm love after years of loneliness. They complement each other perfectly, each offering the other exactly what they needed to be happy again. And the most beautiful thing of all is that this happiness radiated to the entire family. The children gained another person to love them. The daughters saw their parents find peace. Sandra was free to pursue her own happiness. Everyone benefited from this story. If you like this story, subscribe to the channel to be notified whenever I post new gossip and neighborhood stories. Leave a like if you agree that we shouldn't always judge situations by first impressions, and tell me in the comments what you thought of this whole twist. And don't forget to check out those natural products pinned in the first comment. They're wonderful options for taking care of your health, products I use and recommend with confidence. They're definitely worth checking out. Thank you for following me to the end of this story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed discovering the truth behind appearances. Until the next video. And remember, not everything is as it seems in the neighborhood. Emma and Michael taught me that true love has no age, that second chances exist for those who have the courage to start over, and that genuine happiness always finds a way to blossom, even when we least expect it. This is Ruth saying goodbye for today, but already eager to tell you the next story she discovers by peering through the crack in my curtain. Bye, girls!